So I am Philippa Rae. I have my own practice, Philippa Rae Interiors. I've been doing interior design for a long time, over 15 years. I specialise in high-end residential with an edge on period properties, but not just period properties. I'm also doing a lovely 1960s conversion in Bishop Stortford at the moment, which I'm super excited about. And I also do a bit of commercial design as well. I look at office spaces, which I also love as well, because there's a lot of psychology and use of design to make sure that those places are engaging and encouraging for people to come back to. And I don't really have a house style. I look at what would answer my clients' specific needs. But I do like to bring materiality, sustainability, biophilic design, all of those things into the design, because I think they help with flow and energy, and just keep the space being inviting and inspiring. So I kind of want my designs to be joyful and also bring sanctuary as well.
I love that, because too often I don't think we consider that part, do we? The sustainability and how it actually brings peace to your life. So I'm really intrigued about the biophilic design stuff as well, which we're going to cover. So you clean the Christmas tree away, you're looking at your house and thinking, what do I do next? I want to bring some joy back into this space. Where should people start?
I'm going to say there's three things I kind of do. It's clean, organise and enhance. So those are the base points of, I guess, trying to bring the joy back once the tree has gone. I mean, obviously cleaning, hopefully everyone does that. I mean, there's some random tips through history of, using skim milk to clean flagstones. I don't suggest that you necessarily do that, but I do think you should start by, cleaning the floors, cleaning the walls, and especially cleaning the windows. Mainly because lots of people have been in your house, lots of dogs, animals, people, and it's just about getting rid of all that, I guess, remnants. But also cleaning the windows for me is important as well, and especially moving blinds if they're at the top third of the window, because the best part of the day, the light coming through the windows is at that top third of the window. So clean that and move the curtains away, especially in the UK where it's dark most of the time in winter. It can be depressing. So allow the light through. Yes, and that's the start of it, cleaning. I'm assuming
so exciting.
Sorry, we'll move off cleaning because it's not really what I'm about. Organising, I guess, is the next thing. So obviously everybody's got different levels of organisation. It's all about clearing the clutter away. I think the one thing that you do to organise your space once the tree's gone is actually in the hall, because I think that when people walk into your house, the first thing they kind of assess is the entrance space. And if it's full of clutter, then it feels unrelaxing. It feels like you've walked into someone who's midway through clearing their house. But if it is cleared away, and it's, ideally, I don't like seeing coats and shoes in hallways, but, it depends on the size of your house and whether you've got a utility. If you haven't, at least put the shoes in a box or hang the coats on a coat rail. But really what I'm thinking is make sure that the floor is clear so you can see all the corners. I actually fell foul of this as well. I took my seat cushions in from my sofa outside in my garden and put them under the stairs, and the stairs are an open tread stair. And I left them there for a couple of months, and then I was sort of looking at before Christmas. I was like, why are they still there? So I took them all and put them in the garage, and I was like, instantly the space felt calmer. I guess the energy can flow. In Feng Shui, it's really important to have energy flow, especially in your hallway. So yeah, clear the clutter out of your hall. Yeah. If it's the one thing you do that, and it will make you feel, lighter and more energized. So,
do you have like a go-to place that you would recommend for people that's quite affordable to get like the hall storage solutions, or is it very much a personal choice?
I think it's a personal choice. I mean, I don't necessarily think you need to go, excessively all out on buying stuff for it. And IKEA does have some nice stuff. Oka has nice stuff. If you want to go a bit more high end, it's there's Julian Chichester. There's loads of different places, like a small console table or even a little bespoke shelf. So when you're coming in, you put your stuff down. All of that is important, I think, just to clear away the visual clutter. But Yeah, I don't know. There's loads of different places. I can give you some shops and stuff afterwards if you want to share.
Perfect, because I'll put that into the description of the video as well. And also, if you've got questions about cleaning and cleaning products, I'm sure Phil would help, because we sort of brushed over that bit.
I'll tell you what, there is a book that I think it was really good, and my mum gave it to me years ago, and I do think it's worth looking at. And it's Nancy Birtwhistle's Green Living Made Easy, I think, and it's actually got some really useful tips, and it's also about not using hardcore chemicals and bleaches. It's about using bicarbonate of soda, and using I guess cleaning products that have been around for a long time, and maybe we've forgotten about them. But she's really good at just making it sound fun and less arduous than most.
I love that. I'm going to say for that, I'm buying that book. So you've organised your haul. You feng shuied it a little bit, and we're going to come on to that probably in a minute.
Yeah.
What should you do next?
So enhance is the next thing. So as a designer, I always try and start with the floor plans, and I love doing space planning, and it's basically looking at walls and making sure that you can the flow of the space works for the person that's using it, whether that's a workspace or a home space. So obviously, in our quick fixes, I'm not going to start suggesting that you take down walls and stuff, but I do think the position of furniture is really, really important. So if it's a sitting room, there are dominant positions, and feng shui goes into this as well. But it's, for me, I think it's logical. So the safe place for a sofa, I think, is it's kind of opposite the door. People want to be able to see the people coming in,
right.
But it's and also I like to have the sofa so you can see the view as well. So it's those two things. But I think the most important takeaway from this, especially when I go and see clients, is everybody has a workspace at home now. And the amount of clients that I see, and I just went to see one last week, and we are about to do her house. So she's aware that the desk should not be there, but it's in the corner of the dining room against a wall, and she's not even got anywhere to put her legs underneath. And
I'm smiling because I know you, and I can sense that this freaks you out.
And she's a CEO. She's like, I'm like, what do you do? Why? And she's like, I know, but I've also got the workspace in the office. I know, but when you come home, she works a lot at home. But she's managed to squash herself into the smallest, most uninspiring corner of a room in her house. And it's like, oh, okay. And there's other rooms, there's spare bedrooms. So and obviously I am redesigning her house, but I'm going to actually suggest that for a quick win, it's move your desk away from a brick wall and look at the view, because when you're working, you're doing quite close work. So your eyes focusing quite close up. Yes. And over time that becomes really tiring, and your brain needs to have a break. And if you're looking up and you're just seeing a blank wall, that's not giving your brain a break. In fact, it's kind of punishing your brain even more. But if you can look up and see a view, like it's hopefully to trees, to plants, then your brain immediately recalibrates and your eye goes to a different visual point, and it's relaxing for your brain. So it's really important to have those two, visual counterpoints. It's why ideally in a workspace, you want to be near natural light and with a view to nature, because it's relaxing for your brain, and that's an important point. And in fact, there's been studies done. So there was a study, I think it was a Roger Alnick study in 1986, and it was looking at hospitals. And I think this is relevant for a home environment as well, because you can take away from this. But they were looking at the rates of recovery. So if you have a person who's got a view to a brick wall, that's the base rate for their recovery. But if you then put that person with a view to an outside space, which hopefully has trees or some nature element, their recovery is 8.8% faster. And if you then if you then take that person and put them outside, it's 22%. They're 22% less like. Well, I guess it's the pain. What does it say? They need less pain medication. 22% less pain medication outside. So there's kind of reasons that you should, be near light, be in nature. All of those things are really important to me, and I think that obviously in a workspace that's really important, but in a home space as well. We all work at home now. not all the time, but we all work at home to a certain degree. So it's really important to know where your desk should be and how you can help your brain recover when you're really needing to, to de-stress. And that's an easy way to do it.
So I'm guessing, because I do want to talk about that a little bit, we are most of the time, not most of the time, but a lot of people work from home. And what is the best office setup? So put your desk, I'm assuming, in front of a window, ideally. This is my study. You can see I've got the door behind me, though.
I know.
So that would face where you're bad, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think that, because naturally you're going to be if someone comes in the door, you're not going to know who they are. So that's not great. But obviously I accept that everybody's got different setups, and we haven't got all, nice big spaces necessarily to work in. But I think there is a quick win. I orientate my desk so I have a view outside. So if I look up, naturally I can see nature, which is nice. But I wasn't always that way. In lockdown, before I moved out to Hertfordshire, I was in a one-bedroom flat, in fact, for a period of time, and I didn't have a view of outside because it was all internal, the office space bit. And I found that incredibly depressing, to be honest, because you need to have your eye needs to be able to wander and to be engaged, so your brain has space. You need to create. Your brain needs more stimulus to be creative, and I think if you block all that out, then it doesn't help. So plain white walls don't really help creativity, to my mind.
That's interesting, because a lot of people have plain white walls. So what should people be having?
Well, I have plain white walls in certain areas, but and also it depends where you're living. So I think if you've got beautiful backdrops, massive open windows with nature outside, then that's a different scenario. But if you're in an urban environment, and you have the ability to move your desk that you can see outside, then great. But if you don't, there's been research showing that even if you have pictures of beaches or water's quite key, and that will calm your brain as well, and it allows your visually allows you to see something that appeals to you, and that's calming. But a quicker win, I think, also is plants. So I know saying a plant on the desk is it's probably obvious, but lots of people don't do it, and that's a really good thing to do for two reasons. Obviously, plants emit oxygen, that's great. But they also are fractals, so that when you look at them, they're pleasing to the eye because they're giving you pattern, and your eye needs pattern, your brain needs pattern to relax and respond. So that's important as well. I think actually they said that there's another study that's been done that said fractals reduce your heart rate by 60%.
So patterns, or is that plants in particular?
Yeah, fractals. So the most important fractal in human nature, I think, or actual nature, not human nature, is the waterfall. Obviously, we can't all have waterfalls in our garden or in our house. But there's other, but plants themselves are fractals, snowflakes are fractals, all of these things. So even if you don't have a plant on your desk, but I'd say that's an easy win. Wallpaper with abstract with fractal designs, not necessarily abstract because that can agitate the brain, but even if you have a wallpaper with leaves on it, for example, that can be a really nice calming effect. Or fabrics, textiles with fractals on them as well, also gives your eye something, stimulus. So all of that's important to relax and reduce heart rates and blood pressure, and
So what else can people do to enhance their space? Because you've mentioned biophilic design. What's that?
That's, I guess, very simply, it's sort of similar to feng shui. It's about working in harmony with nature, understanding that I think in prehistoric times, 90% of our time was probably outside foraging in nature. We didn't have workspaces, and we were out hunter gathering, and now only 10% of our time is spent outside. So that's kind of detrimental to our health. So everything that we now need to do is to work in harmony with nature. So it is about being able to be as close to natural light, being able to choose to make sure your airflow is good, to make sure the air temperature is right, and also to give you autonomy on changing that. So in an office space, ideally you want to be able to sit near a window, you want to be able to control your air temperature, because that's not always possible, and then I think it irritates people as well. And you also want to be able to move around, to be sociable. And I think I know we're talking about at home, but I also think workspaces are important as well, because we're kind of now doing a hybrid, aren't we, where we're doing both. But I think the workspace has evolved as well, so we're actually going to work to socialize to a certain extent these days, whereas that wasn't necessarily the case before. And I think now that we've gone through COVID, all that data's come in, but that there's been so much analysis done on workspaces to try and pull people back. We can use that data in the home as well to understand how to live better, to create sanctuaries. So one of the takeaways, I think, is that water is key in a workspace and a home space as well. It's really good at relaxing you. So and then it's also fractals as well, the light reflecting on the water as well. So even if you can't have a waterfall
in your office,
even if you can't do that, even if you have a moving picture of water, or even just a picture of water, it helps. So it's good, and I think that's an easy win for people as well. So plants, pictures of water. Even if you haven't got a window that's immediately opposite you, then you can put a mirror behind you which reflects, mirror in front of you, which reflects that window and the nature outside, and that will help as well. So there's different ways that you can try and extend that view if you haven't got the ability to move the desk into a prime position.
Because I guess that's the hardest thing. If you're working in, say, like Canary Wharf or somewhere, and you're in an office block which you have no control over what you do within it, the small things that you say can put on your desk make a huge difference, don't they?
Exactly. Actually, it's really interesting, because I think that what they used to do, that sort of Gordon Gekko kind of office, on the corner office with the view, and they used to always put the most important people around the edge, and that meant that the key workers who were there probably most of the time, I think offices around the edge are populated about unpopulated 75% of the time, whereas key workers in the middle get the least light, and that's it almost is creating sick building syndrome, just not having enough light and not having enough stimulus. So now I think we understand all that. I think that's all changing, but I think it's important to bring that home and realize how important it is to bring nature in and to bring pattern in, and what will help your mind and your mental health and your physical health recover quicker. If you come home from a hard day's work, what can I do to go home and feel relaxed? So have a bath, yes, brilliant. But if you have a fire, light it. Especially, I know sometimes it can feel a bit of a faff lighting a fire if you have an open fire, because maybe you have to clean it and stuff. But that's the easiest, that's a really easy win. And if you can't even be bothered to do that, put candles in the fire, because that's an immediate comfort factor.
Is that like a factual thing again, or what's the logic behind that?
Yeah, feng shui it's a thing about that. It's like, if you have fire is a comforting and I guess a natural thing as well. So if you have the ability to bring that in, then it will it'll help you relax and feed your sense of comfort and safety. So it's just a good thing to do, and it's an easy win as well. So obviously make sure you blow them out. Don't want to cause fires and stuff, but light candles, light fires, add a mirror, clean your windows, make sure you've got enough natural light coming into your house. Make sure you're orientated your furniture for as much benefit as you can. So to look at a view, to see the door. Those are the things I was saying. Declutter.
So let's just touch on that briefly, like the feng shui, putting your furniture in the right place. I know nothing about this. I remember someone I used to work with who was very senior at Standard Chartered used to have an expert come in and do their office. And everybody was like, what are you doing? So say you've got bog standard sitting room, rectangular shape, got your sofas wherever, TV wherever. What's the best thing to do in terms of the angles and things like that? Because I know it's a bit like that, isn't it?
It is a bit like that. So I guess what they're trying to say is, I think Feng Shui originally was trying to make sure, the very, very beginning of Feng Shui was trying to make sure that when people built their cities, it was macro scale at this point, that they build them in the right place. So make sure that you have mountains behind your town, because that will block the wind. And then make sure you have water, because you need a water supply. And then there's wood. There's 5 elements of Feng Shui. And if you are interested in it, there's a lovely podcast which features Maureen Calamai, I think. She has got a company called Luminous Spaces, and she explains it really beautifully. But yes, it's basically putting the furniture in the dominant position of the room, so you feel comfortable. So if someone walks into the space, you are feeling comfortable. You can see that you have a clear view to the door. It's usually sort of maybe diagonally. You don't want the sofa immediately opposite the door. It's a bit like having a bed immediately opposite the door. That's right. Slightly upward. So it's slightly off center, slightly on a diagonal. If you can do this, obviously not every room it's possible to do this. And then, you build the stuff around that. But it's, so each room, there will be a dominant position for the furniture to be in. And if you can, then that's the approach you should take. And in doing that, you free the energy to flow through the space. Right. So you're trying not to create blockages, because it's all about flow. And that, it's kind of like when we do good design, we look at how people will walk through a space and how comfortable they'll feel to sit in the space as well. So you're promoting easy flow and conviviality, I think, as well. It depends what each space is doing. But yeah, if you're doing a sitting room, you want everyone to feel comfortable in the space. And I think the other thing about Feng Shui and biophilic design is also try not to create sharp objects. You're trying to create curves and softness to the space, which is why plants and textiles and natural products like wood are good to bring in, because nature doesn't really do sharp edges. It's it's all smooth around. So yeah,
you mentioned it there. You want people to feel comfortable in a space, and I know that you've talked before around helping people have a house that's good for their mental health as well.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about that, Phil?
Yeah. So there's been obviously I think a big move for sensory design, which is to me it's biophilic design, and I think it's like 1 in 4 people have I think they now worked out are neurodivergent. So now I think we should all be designing for neurodivergency as a fact, as a thing. And if we do that, that means that everybody that comes into your space, whether it's home or work, will feel relaxed and catered for. Mm-hmm. And that is, I guess, it's all about building layers and textures. And sometimes that, you don't want to overstimulate people. In fact, there was a really lovely study that was done, I think during lockdown, and as we were coming out of lockdown, the practice that was asked to help this office was asked to introduce biophilic design or plants to see if it would help bring people back into their office space, and how it would foster, I guess, calmness, but also promote conversation and excitement about being back in the space. And I do this because it's important that it's taken back into the home as well. But what they realized was they had this massive living wall initially. So that people had been away from the workspace, and while they were away, they decided to install this massive living wall and put plants everywhere. In fact, they've worked out, there's a different study, but 6 plants per person is optimum. So that's quite a lot of plants. Yeah, and a workspace. But anyway, so they put this living wall in, and they put loads of plants in. And when the people came back, they were all like, "Wow, this is amazing! It's really interesting. I love it." And then they continued the experiment by taking all of the plants. I think they took the living wall out and left some plants. And the people were like, "Oh, okay, well, this is nice." And then the next thing they do is took everything away. And the people were like, "Well, actually, no, we don't like this. This is, it feels like you've you're punishing us. Why have you taken all the things that are nice away? And so then they looked at the maintenance over time, because obviously when we do design, we have to think about how people are actually going to live and maintain that space. And they realized that for the best productivity, actually the middle one, where there was some plants but not the living wall, was the optimum, because it wasn't enormously costly to do, but people were still really productive in that space. Obviously the most creative was the living wall, but actually some people didn't respond brilliantly to that, because it can be a lot of visual clutter for some people, and they don't necessarily want to have that level of engagement or visual
simulation, isn't it?
Yeah. So actually they realized that, going the middle one with lots of plants was good, and that can be taken home as well. So if you don't have a garden to look out on, bring plants in, but it doesn't have to be loads of plants. You don't have to go overboard on it, but some plants in the space will really help you to feel calm and at one with nature. And that's what it's about. It's trying to make sure that you have an environment which calms you. That's how I feel about home anyway. I want to come home and feel sanctuary. But for me, it's also connected with light. So if I haven't got enough light, I definitely feel sad. And there's studies on that. So that's why the sad lights exist. So yeah, it's all about trying to. If I was going to design, renovate a home from scratch, I would, which I do. That's my love. I love doing that. And I'm working on some really beautiful projects at the moment, which is all about how we push the light through to the main spaces and beyond. Then you orientate, you use the north light, you use the south light, and you make sure that it's each room has a specific function, and it takes advantage of the different lights at the different times of day. And obviously that will change in the southern hemisphere to the northern hemisphere, and so we design differently. But we all have the same idea. It's using natural light and the power of the sun to help us create better spaces for people. In fact, there was another thing, a study done on how natural sunlight affects your brain, and if you get up and you see the sunrise, the natural light hits the back of your eye, and then in turn creates serotonin. So there's a real reason to get up that early.
Yeah. One of the first things you're supposed to do, isn't it, to go outside if you can, and just spend minutes outside. So what would you advise, Phil? So going into 2025, you want to refresh your home. What tips have you got?
Okay, so my top tips are: clear your hall, add plants to your space, orientate your desk so you've got a view, add a mirror if you can't, move your sofa to an optimum position, and if you want more information on that, listen to this is my top one. Listen to the Biophilic Journal of Design. This woman called Vanessa Champion has started it in 2020, and it's still going, and it's just a really good listen. You've got very important people discussing how, and it's all science, but it's not all science, but lots of science-based information on it, which I really like, because design isn't just, I think this wall should be pink for this reason. There's a psychology behind it, and all these very, very clever people have been interviewed by this lovely woman, Vanessa Champion, and it's just really interesting to listen to. So I would say listen to that, and incorporate as much light and nature in your house as you can, even if it's just pictures of water. If you've got, I never
knew the whole water thing. I knew the plants, but the water thing really fascinates me.
Yeah.
So is there any trends that you're aware of that are going into 2025 that you want to talk about? Like to do with colour or actual design?
I think I kind of think that I'm hoping that the whitewashing trend is on the wane, and people are embracing colour more now as well, which is great. And sustainability, all of those things are really important. And I think actually it's been said before, like sustainability is like a separate category in design and architecture and in awards and stuff, and really it should be incorporated into every project that you do, because if you design well from the outset and you use the right materials, it will stand the test of time, and that's really what good design and good architecture should be about. So I'm hoping that that's the continued and advanced trend that's gonna it could continue, really.
Yeah. And silly question, say I've got a green wall, does that have the same effect as the plants, or a blue wall in terms of water, or is that not really?
Yeah, because there's a psychology of colour, and actually Karen Haller, there's a book by Karen Haller which is brilliant as well, and it talks about the psychology of colour. But yes, colours obviously have a massive influence on you. So green is calming, but you can include green in certain areas, but and not in other areas. So I have a green office at home, which I find very therapeutic. But if there's a slightly too much black in it, this green has got a bit of black in it. In winter, at night, it can feel a bit cold. So it's brilliant in summer. So I tend to work in different places in my house through the different seasons. So things like red in a dining room, I know it seems like it's quite a traditional colour, but there's a reason that red is popular in dining rooms, because it aids digestion.
Really? I never knew that.
Yeah.
What,
and so
tone of red or just red?
Well, I don't think you go brick red, because that would be quite a shouty room to sit in, but a deep red, yeah. And if you look at things like orange is an energizing color, so that's why companies like EasyJet and stuff use it, because it's about doing stuff. Red is about digestion. I think light blue is quite a calming space to be in, but it can be quite cold as well, so you need to make sure that the sun that gets into that room is enough, because otherwise, if it's a north room with a light blue, then that could be really icy and cold. North room with the south facing, that could be lovely. So north room with a little bit of pink in it, lovely, because it feels like the sun's in there. So yeah, there's loads of psychology in colour, and I loved looking at that as well. So yeah, I think that if you look at design, it's important to realise that we're not just arbitrarily choosing things. There's a point, and there's usually a lot of data behind it as well.
And you're so knowledgeable on this, which is so fascinating, because I'm going to have to ask you, say I wanted to redecorate my kitchen, what would I consider in terms of colour?
Well, I would say more than anything, it's the materials, isn't it? So depends obviously each person's different, and I want to respond to your specific needs and the story that you want to tell. But I would say layer materials, have wood, have stone. If you're going for colour, I mean, I've got black kitchen units. Black's quite you need to have a lot of light, I think, in a room to have black, because it absorbs the light. But green is quite a nice colour. There's another funny thing that I've learned about. Apparently, flies can't see blue, and I presume there's a specific blue. I think it's sky blue. So they tend not to land on it. So if you don't want flies in the kitchen, blue is quite a good choice. I know, but I don't think it'd be. I mean, deep blue is quite popular at the moment, isn't it? And I think they could probably see that. I think it's probably more to do with the sky colours. But yeah, I thought that was quite a nice little interesting takeaway. But yeah, if you were doing your kitchen right now, I would.
But I just was. If people are watching, I think I want to do my kitchen, or I want to do my sitting room for a new year, new look. What should they be thinking about?
Yeah, and actually, I've done this for a client. So instead of having to rip it all out, the client liked the worktops and stuff, but they just didn't like the door fronts. So we changed the door fronts, and that's quite an easy win. There are companies out there that will just come and take away your cabinet fronts and put new ones in. So you can change that colour quite easily. In that particular instance, we did this kind of bottle green, and it looked beautiful. But another client of mine wanted a pink kitchen, and I was thinking, is this going to stand the test of time? But I did that for her 8 years ago, and she's still got a pink kitchen, and she loves it. So yeah, I think I don't like giving people a blanket this colour. That's why I don't like suggesting that the colour trend for next year will be X. I want to respond to you personally, because that's what, as a designer, I want to tell your story. I don't want to force my my colours on you. I'll tell you which ones I think would work better and what hue I think would work in the room, but really it's responding to what you like and what you need and what will make you feel joy.
I love that. And we're all different, which is a beautiful thing. So some people will like that whitewash look and others will want a pink kitchen, which I'm kind of coming around to, if I'm honest, but that's a different discussion. Phil, thank you so much for imparting all your knowledge. I will, people watching the video, or if it is live, I'll put a link in the descriptions to the podcast that Phil mentioned and the book, and also a link to get in touch. I have to say, I have seen some of Phil's projects, and you can follow her on Instagram as well, but they're just incredible, some of the stuff that you do. Would you say you've got a particularly favourite thing that you work on? I know you're doing an amazing property in Devon at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, actually, it's funny you say that. I was thinking about this the other day. The properties, the properties I'm really enjoying working on have actually got a massive nature element to them. So the one in Devon that you just mentioned is actually on the sea. It's on a cliff overlooking the sea, so you've got this fantastic view. And the one in Chiswick is overlooking the Thames, again that lovely body of water. And even the one I'm doing in Bishop Stortford is on a tree-lined street. She's got these massive trees in the garden, so it feels like when you're upstairs, it feels like you're in a tree house. So I do like having a connection with the inside and the outside. I think they have to gel, and I think that I genuinely think that nature's so inspiring that if you can incorporate it in your design, then it will only enhance the way you live.
And I know that you're very good actually with tricky projects as well, aren't you? Where it's logistics, you have to really think through about how you're getting materials into the house and all that kind of thing.
Exactly, that's true. The cliff one is, you can only really get stuff in by the water, because it can't go down the 100-foot cliff face. So that is, again, talking about the materials and making sure that the ones we pick are sustainable, lightweight, but they have low impact, and also trying to work with the cliff as well to try and retain as much of that too, and have parts of the cliff visible in the house. So but yes, it is really important, I think, to make sure that what you put in has a kind of longevity to it. It shouldn't just be.
Talk to you for hours about this. I find it so fascinating. So thank you so much. As I said, I'll put some information in the description so you can see what Phil is all about. But and I'll put your Instagram handle in there as well, so you can see some of Phil's projects. But this has been brilliant. Thank you, and I'm going to say goodbye. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks very much. Take care. Happy New Year, brother. Bye.